Question: will my puppy or kitty be in heaven? The title for this sermon is a springboard from a video posted last week entitled "Do Dogs Go to Heaven?" produced by the well-known author from San Antonio, Texas, Max Lucado. Brother Lucado is a wayward member of the Church of Christ. He's very well known and, as I understand, very moneyed. He's sold, 39 million books in his lifetime. He's Betty's age, so he's about my age. That's commendable. Most of his clientele have been Baptists and other denominationalists because sound brethren rarely will buy his stuff or read it, except maybe for different purposes, maybe to refute it. He knows what people want to hear, so he dealt with this question. Somebody had asked about, do dogs go to heaven? So he produced this short video last week, and the way he wants to argue, yes, there will be pets in heaven, because you see people like that. That sells. That sells. Brother Lucado realizes that. Oh, he's a friendly guy. Friendly. I don't know him personally, but I mean in the video, he's in his nice home there in Texas, and he's in front of the camera, and he's got such a pleasant personality. Not like Smiley. He's not fake like Olstein over in Houston, but I mean he's a winsome kind of guy. You'd want him for a next door neighbor. He'll tell you that if you doubt it. I mean, he's a good guy. He'll let you know that. Really good guy. He has a lot of ideas. He wants to tell us about why there will be pets in heaven. Well, because they're pets now, and this is heaven. All right. You can see I'm a little worked up. Not because Max Lucado, some have thought he was Lucado the weirdo, but that may be mean and unfair, but probably accurate some of his views. The reason I'm upset is that a dear friend of mine who lives just outside of San Antonio posted this silly video and endorsed this silly video. Some of his members made favorable comments about this silly video. Oh, one of them said, now that I understand this, I can't wait to make homemade bread and spread butter on it for my friends in heaven. And my friend commented, at least there'll be no cholesterol there. My wife would love this video. Yeah, she's a cat woman. She likes kitties. And oh, what a wonderful idea. The cats are going to be in heaven with us. Is this what we've come to in the brother? Is this what we've come to? Why, Eric? Why? Oh, he took it down. Why did you put that up there? Oh, he took it down. Good. You took it down. I've yet to see a refutation. Okay? I've yet to see a refutation. Let's see that. And then I will come back and modify what I'm saying now. But until we do, we must answer this silliness. Because as I've come to understand it, you see, this idea that there will not be a place we thought of all through the years as heaven, in another realm or sphere different from this, that this idea that the earth is heaven and heaven will be here on this earth, this is gaining ascendancy. And it's kind of warp and woof of the premillennial theory or heresy that has been widely adopted in the denomination to which Brother Lucado has maximum appeal. They understand. Okay, they frankly say, Baptists who interview him, you're Baptist in your credo. In other words, you're Baptist in your doctrine. Why are you still associated with the Churches of Christ? Well, they call themselves, instead of Oak Hill Church of Christ as they once did in San Antonio, they call themselves the Oak Hill Church. So they've kind of divorced themselves from honoring my Lord who died for me and using his name in the name of the church instead of saying the Church of Christ. It's just the church. We're the church. Emphasis is on us. So he kind of gets off the hook with that, I guess, and sells a lot of books. A lot of books. 2 Peter 2, what is it? 2 and 3, shall they with feigned words, really pretty words, make merchandise of you? Yeah. I think there will be pets in heaven. Let's make this first comment. Here's what I find as an irony. For many decades, centuries, biblical scholars, theologians, were arguing that here should be the proper worldview. The world had a beginning, a definite beginning in time. Time is linear. It will have a definite ending in time. And yet, physicists who were unbelievers argued contrary-wise. Even back in the 1940s, Fred Hoyle, a guy named Bondi and Gold, and several other authors who wrote with him, put out a view called the steady state theory, in which they said the universe is eternal. It's always been. And it'll always be here, that matter just pops into existence out of nothing. But in view of the revolutionary findings of the 20th century, the steady state theory of the physicists is defunct. No longer works. Now, I'm not going to talk about how to reconcile this view with biblical chronology. I believe it can be. But let's just say the modern physicist says the world had a definite beginning in time in the past. And it will have a definite end. It will definitely end. You know, think of this fascinating universe. There are 100 billion stars just in the Milky Way galaxy alone. And yet there are billions upon billions, hundreds of billions of galaxies. 100 billion stars just in our galaxy. Let's name them, Garrett. Let's name them right now. Let's just start saying we're going to name them one by one. Star number one, star number two. Well, we can give them different names and do that one a second. You know how long it takes to do that? One star per second, naming all just in the Milky Way? Only 2,500 years. That's just 2,500 years. I'm saying we live in a magnificent world. A magnificent universe. There is a sun. There is a moon. There are all the myriads of stars, but they will come to an end. Scientists say, and this is pretty good evidence here this is going to happen, as they study how our sun operates, how God made it. Nuclear fission or fusion at the core, hydrogen being converted into helium and the release of the energy constantly. But this is a finite thing because there's just a finite amount of fuel in the sun. It cannot, given its nature, last forever. It's going to run out. And in fact, within 1 billion years from now, if the world continues, in 1 billion years, so much of the energy will be lost initially in the sun that the sun will expand because of its gravitational force will be weakened, and it will expand and will become so hot it will scorch all the oceans of the earth. There won't be any oceans on the earth. This world is going to end according to the physicists, but how odd. Now the theologians have done a 180-degree flip-flop. Now the theologians are arguing, oh no, this world's going to last forever. Oh, this world's going to last forever. My friend posted this Lucado video in which he's arguing that very point. Let me just be fair to Lucado. Let's just see what he said. Okay, it's about a 12-minute video. And I'm going to give you a quick synopsis. He asked, is heaven non-earth? Is heaven non-earth? You can understand that question. Is heaven something other than this earth? Will God abandon this earth? Well, first, that's the wrong question. It isn't a question of abandoning it. Will the purpose of this earth, this one, be superseded? That's the proper question, Brother Lucado. God made the world, and when he did, he said it's very good in Genesis. He can't abandon it. But wait, there's the curse factor. Have you forgotten that this world was cursed? Have you also forgotten the fact that in the flood of Noah, this world which God once pronounced was very good, was wiped away, destroyed the world, the ancient world as it was then known? Have you forgotten that? Oh, but he goes on to quote the passage we had as our text, Isaiah 65 and verse 17, where God says, I will make a new heavens and a new earth. So you see, the earth is going to be remade. It's going to be renovated. That's the theory, the renovation theory. The earth's going to be revamped, remodeled, but it will be this earth. He says, quote, God's heavenly hope contains an earthly dimension. In that last phase of life, we don't go up to heaven. Heaven comes down to us. Yeah, That way I can keep my cat and my dog, and they'll still be here, right? This is the motive. Heaven comes down to earth, he says. Revelation 21 and verse 2. So I go to that passage to see how he derived that, and John says in this highly apocalyptic figurative language book, and I saw a new heaven and a new earth. We see that's Isaiah. Isaiah had seen that. For the first heaven and the first earth were passed away. Don't pay any attention to that behind the curtain. Don't see that. And there was no more sea. Don't look at that. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And this is their theory. He's not the only one teaching it. Lucato's not. It's all around, especially among denominationalists, but it's seeping into aspects of the churches of Christ and in some places. The idea, heaven is coming to earth. Is that what he said? Heaven is coming. Wait a minute. He said, I saw New Jerusalem coming down from God out of heaven. That's what he said. The New Jerusalem came out of heaven. But Lucato quoted it saying that heaven comes to earth. That's not exactly what John said, but we'll let that go for a moment. He will come down to reclaim his creation. Quote, unquote, reclaim his creation. He is a God of restoration, quote, unquote, not a God of destruction. God's not going to destroy this world. He's just going to restore it. And then he uses another proof text that fascinated me in Matthew chapter 19 and verse 28. So I go to Matthew 19:28, and Matthew's the only one who uses this language in this way, in this context. And he says, if you are followers of me, verily I say unto you, that you which have followed me in the regeneration. When the Son of Man shall sit on the throne of his glory, ye also shall sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. That's the King James I just read, familiar to us, in the regeneration. But wait a minute. When Brother Lucato quotes this passage, he says, in the recreation of the world. He said, and I got that from a translation called The Messenger. It's not a very normally used translation, and it's not very common. But it says it that way. Well, I was wondering about that. The Message. 2002, published by Eugene H. Peterson, a one-man translation. Already, as the Spanish people say, ojo, be careful. Look, something's going on. Here, one man as opposed to a committee. You've got to be careful. And secondly, it's called a highly idiomatic translation. In other words, it's a paraphrase. So he finds this strange off-brand paraphrase and quotes in the recreation of the world. And from the Greek word palingenesia, which means palin again, genesia means birth, rebirth, to be born again. It's the rebirth. And what is Jesus talking about? Evidently, two things are in mind. Either the new age to come, which will be the Christian age under the new covenant, or, very likely, also he's talking about the final end of the world and the new heavens and the new earth. But that's not what Brother Lucato is saying, that there will literally be a new heavens and a new earth. It's going to be this earth, these heavens, just remade, revamped. He said to destroy the universe is to admit that it cannot be reclaimed. Well, what about Sodom and Gomorrah? To punish the wicked people there, to take their lives and send them off into eternity, where they're suffering the vengeance of eternal fire. Jude 7, is that to say they cannot be reclaimed? Well, evidently there are certain ones who cannot be reclaimed. So he asked this question. So this is a quote, a direct quote. So is heaven on earth? I think not. Okay, it really matters what you think, I suppose. And then he says, is heaven this earth? I think so. Now what if I preached like that? Probably you would be, I start to say grossed out. You probably would not be in any way amused or enamored with my preaching if I started telling you what I think, what I believe, because you'd wonder, what does it matter? But let's move on. Then he mentions there are two Greek words for the word new, the adjective new. The new heavens and new earth. One Greek word means new in kind, new in quality. The other Greek word means new in terms of chronology, like newness. The first is kainos, new in kind. The other is neos. Some of you nurses may hear neos, like neonatal, newborn, new baby. Neos, new in terms of recently coming into being. So he says the word that describes the new heaven is kainos, new, and it means it's new in kind. That's right. That's right. It's new in kind. But then from that he says, you can see behind me. He did this from his home. You see behind me my kitchen. Very pretty kitchen. Nice house. I mean, if you have $10 million from book sales, you can afford a nice house back here. So, see my kitchen recently, we remodeled my kitchen. It's still the same kitchen. It's got new stuff in it. So that's his analogy. Same earth, just made better. New stuff in it. Kainos doesn't mean that, brother. In this context, kainos means new in quality. It means a different kind. Different kind. It is actually the same kitchen. New refrigerator, new stove, but still the same kitchen. Both with different tiles on the floor, still the same kitchen. So the Greek word argument means nothing. But he says, wait a minute. Paul said in 2 Corinthians 5:17, if any man be in Christ, he is a new creature. Kainos in the Greek. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things are become new. And then he says, and I'm going to quote him because you'll see how he will phrase things. He says, it doesn't mean that before trusting in Christ, that person did not exist. We would say, why didn't you say obey the gospel? Because he doesn't believe that. You see, he believes you are saved at the point of faith alone. Then you later on get baptized. That's his doctrine. Sells a lot of books. A lot of books. And so that's why he's so well known and called upon to be a spokesman many times in national news networks and is interviewed and is so influential in that way. Well, as a matter of fact, yes, it does mean a different person. If you're a new creature, you're not that same sinful person. That person's gone. That old man's been buried. You're a new creature. You are a new creature. You're different. So kainos suggests quality there. So even that doesn't mean. But then he says, I know you're thinking, what about these promises in the Bible? What about these promises that God's going to destroy the world? And he's thinking especially of 2 Peter chapter 3. And that's a hard one to get over. 2 Peter chapter 3 verses 10 and down to 14. Well, actually 2 Peter chapter 3 verses, let's just say 10 to 12. 2 Peter 3, 10 to 12. We're going to look at that in detail in a moment. But he says, yeah, it says the world will be destroyed by fire. But, a blacksmith will destroy an implement by fire and he will reshape it, recast it. And he said, so fire's not always bad. It's not destruction. And he says, and out on the field of battle, the medic may have to take a knife or a surgical knife and use a match or something, and he'll have to sterilize that to kill the germs. So that's a good thing. Fire's a good thing. Fire's going to make this world better. He doesn't mean he's going to destroy it. He means he's going to recast it and reshape it. And in the context, he mentions the flood, Brother Lucado says. And in 2 Peter chapter 3, he talks about the flood of Noah. It's still the same world, even though it was destroyed by the flood. No, you've missed the point Peter makes. That old world of sinful men was wiped off the face of the earth by the flood. It's a different world now. That world was destroyed. That world is no longer here. Verses 6 and following. Whereby the world then was being overflowed with water perished. Verse 7, 2 Peter chapter 3, but the heavens and the earth, which are now by the same word, are kept in store, reserved unto fire against the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men. Oh, but that's fire just to cleanse it and make it better. He tells us. I think he would argue. But he misses the whole point. Now he asks another question. A 5-year-old son who's the son of a friend of mine asked, Daddy, will there be mud puddles in heaven? Water puddles in heaven? He's 5 years old, so he's interested in things like that. I think so, the father said. Sound like Lucado's own words. I think so. He said, will there be big mud puddles? Oh, big water puddles? Yeah, I think so. Will there be lots of mud in the bottom of those puddles? Yes, I think so. I want to go to heaven. I was just looking at GBN, Gospel Broadcasting Network, has a whole segment in which they're analyzing this loony view. And noticing the denominationalists who are teaching this. This was before, they came out with theirs before Lucado put his video out last week. And they talked about how one guy said, all the world in heaven is going to be one giant amusement park. It'll be a giant Six Flag, it's going to be a Disney World forever and ever. Why? Because I can't imagine being happy if I have to worship God every day and every night forever. I can't imagine. That's boring. So I want to see the world as one like this one. Are there going to be any kitties and puppies in heaven? Yeah, I think so. You've wondered, will there be a sunset in heaven? Lucado asks. The woodland glade, the breathtaking, quote, the stars that dance like dewdrops in the sky. He's a word crafter. He's a word king, see? I think he dangles the Yosemite waterfall or the Caribbean coast in our direction to say, this is just an appetizer. And he said, this world is just a postcard of the world to come. I can preach that, Lucado. I can say this world is a postcard of the world to come, but it ain't it. You see, a postcard is not the real thing. It's kind of like it, but you need to be here to understand. You really need to be here. Now notice he said the Caribbean coast, which is surrounded by a Caribbean sea. Your doctrine doesn't say it's just a postcard. The doctrine you're defending said it's this same world, not just a postcard of it, but that is this world. You said it. People ask all the time, will there be animals in heaven? Quote unquote. Quote again. Of course, he said. Of course. Scripture says, let everything that has breath praise the Lord. Well, my puppy has breath. That's a direct quote from a man who professes to be a religious leader in the United States and throughout the world, who has a great, enormous influence. And he's telling us, my puppy has breath, so he's going to obviously be there to praise the Lord. Will we enjoy the sun and the moon in heaven, he asks? I think so. That nice little Texas drawl. I think so. To say that the earth won't need the sun or the moon, because he suddenly realizes the passage in John, in Revelation, he quoted, said there will be no moon or sun. There will be no need for the light. God will be the light of the New Jerusalem. Yeah, he says, but to say that the earth won't need the sun or the moon and to say it won't have them are really two different statements. Quote, he'll illuminate the skies with his glory, and he'll display sunsets and a beautiful nighttime of the moon, appearances of the moon. Beautiful nighttime appearances of the moon. Quote, direct quotes from this little video, he said. And yet, as we will see, the elements will melt with fervent heat. That will include the moon. It won't be here. I ask you this question. If God's glory is so bright, you don't need the sun. He's as bright as the sun, right? God's coming down to this earth, according to that theory. He's going to make his abode among us right here on the earth. Heaven's going to come down to earth. How can I see the light of the moon if God is here and he's so bright? I couldn't see the moonlight. That's an absurdity. But it sells books, and people, they look at his videos, and my wife would like this video. A friend of mine, she'd love this video. So he says in the end, this is his conclusion, heaven is the best possible earth. All right, enough of that. Let's just look at what the scriptures say. Let's go back to Revelation 21, 1 and 2 that we noticed a moment ago. Again, it doesn't say that heaven's coming to earth. He misquoted it. It says the New Jerusalem comes down out of heaven. So do you take this literally? Apparently, Brother Lucado is taking it literally. And my friend who endorsed the video, unless he withdraws that endorsement, is also taking it literally. But this same passage says there is no more sea. Now he's talking about that foretaste of heaven on the Caribbean coast, but there won't be any sea. The problem is this. The earth is 71% water right now. 96% of that water is in the sea. But John says, this is literal, Lucado says, and my friend would say, literal. So there's no more sea. Now imagine this earth, just given present climate conditions, without the ocean. Can you imagine what this would? It'd be a dry, arid place, like Mars or something. It would be uninhabitable. But this is the world, Lucado says. This is the world that will be heaven. The city foursquare that's described there, the New Jerusalem that came out of heaven, didn't say heaven came with it, came out of heaven. That New Jerusalem foursquare city, the dimensions are given in chapter 21 of Revelation. That would be 1,500 miles wide. But it's supposedly, according to premillennial theory, going to come down to, the city of Jerusalem, the literal city, that area where Jerusalem is now. The problem is Palestine's not that big. You can't put a city that big in there unless they say it's going to be a giant skyscraper sticking up into the stratosphere. It's all literal. But if he says, oh, it's not really literal, then you've lost your argument. Besides, this coming down, when John said, I saw this city coming down, is John's point of view. John saw it, this was his perspective. In the vision, like when Peter was on the housetop in Joppa, he saw a sheet coming down from heaven, tied at the four corners with all manner of unclean animals. In the vision, he saw it coming down. That didn't say either that heaven came down, any more than you'd say that heaven comes down when the New Jerusalem comes down. John sees it coming down. In chapter 21 and verse 1, he clearly says, I will make a new heavens and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth were passed away. Oh, but there'll be pets in heaven because it's this world. I think so. It's this world. But no, he said it passes away. Chapter 21 and verse 5. Behold, I make all things new. Are you saying, Brother Gray, there will not be a new heavens or a new earth? I am saying the Bible says there will be new heavens, new earth. It won't be this one or these heavens. This earth won't be here. It won't be this world, just new and improved. The very phrase Luke Cato used in his little speech. New and improved earth. Some have said, you mean the earth 2.0. In Matthew 19 and verse 28, he uses this word, the recreation of the world, from this off-brand, non-standard version, a one-man version of the Bible called The Message by Peterson. It's a paraphrase. The word is palingenesia, and it literally means a being born again. It means to become again. So it's just the idea, we're going to get new heavens and a new earth. The Stoics had an idea of this. The Stoic philosophers, who were Greek, thought that periodically the world was destroyed by fire, and then it was made over again, started over. And then it would die out by fire and was made over again. But they didn't think it was renewed. They thought it was the same world that came back. This was the Stoic idea. Then the term was used by Hellenistic Jews, Greek-speaking Jews, to refer to biblical concepts like the teaching of creation in the Old Testament book of Genesis. Not Stoic ideas. And Jesus is obviously using it in a different way. Is Matthew saying by using the word the regeneration that the renovated earth theory is true? I don't think so. I don't think so. Matthew 24:35, heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. What? Heaven and earth shall pass away? No, Lord, you said it's going to be recreated. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. Two Greek words for new. We already noticed a while ago, the chronology or quality argument doesn't make any difference. Kainos means quality. It will be a new heavens and a new earth. It means different in quality, different in kind. It won't be the same earth. It never means that it hadn't been here before, he says. New in quality doesn't suggest that it's going to be another one. Well, yes, it does. It's new in quality. And the fact that we're new creatures, somebody says, but you're the same creature. No, Paul says we're a new creature. That old man is gone. That man of sin is not here anymore. Now I'm a pardoned person, justified person. I am new. Born again, John 3:5. You're mistaken about your use of the word kainos for the word new. Then he explains away the destruction of the world and said it's the end of the world is going to be like a blacksmith making new implements. Tries to say it's like sterilizing a knife. That won't work. Let's take our Bibles and look at 2 Peter chapter 3. This is the King James, but I did extensive study this week over the original Greek to see that, I hate to say they're just blowing smoke. It's a bad pun. But they're just ignoring. You're just ignoring what the text says. But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in the which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise. This is an onomatopoeia word. And it seems to suggest the idea that the very noise itself, huge noise. And the elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also and the works that are therein shall be burned up. Oh, just purified and made better. Burned up. Seeing then that all these things shall be dissolved, what manner of persons ought ye to be in all holy conversation and godliness? Looking forward and hastening unto the coming of the day of God, wherein the heavens, being on fire, shall be dissolved. And the elements shall melt with fervent heat. Nevertheless, we, according to his promise, Look for new heavens and a new earth, wherein dwelleth righteousness. Not the same old one. Oh, I wish I had time to go into all these Greek findings. Because if you look these terms up, they are extremely graphic in the Greek. This actually means burning, pararchomai, to come to an end, and so no longer be there. According to the best authority on earth, Greek authority, the Bauer, Danker, Art, and Gingrich translation. This word pass away, 2 Peter 3 and verse 10, the heavens will pass away with a great noise, means to come to an end. And so no longer be there. It means to pass away, to disappear. That doesn't fit the renovated earth view. To melt with fervent heat is from luo. It means to reduce something by violence into its components, to destroy it. That's what the word means. God is going to destroy the world. Being consumed by heat, it will burn up. From kalsao in the Greek, this is it. And I'm quoting from the authorities here. The elements will be destroyed by burning. This word means to burn down, to burn up, to consume by fire. The earth and the works in it will be burned up, according to our standard translations. You will find in the NIV, the earth and the works that are in it, everything in it will be laid bare. There is a technical point here. A few manuscripts from ancient times have an expression that means literally discovered. Scholars are baffled about how that happened. Where was the error? What was original? Burned up here or discovered? If the latter, discovered, it means laid bare in judgment, in the sense he's saying they'll be brought into judgment. If the former, it just coincides with the rest of the text. But whether you accept that phrase there in the earth and the works in it shall be burned up, the rest of it says the heavens and the earth will be burned up. So it doesn't matter that textual discrepancy at that point. Verse 11, since all these things are to be destroyed this way, according to the New American Standard Bible, are dissolved. The day of God will come on account of which the heavens will be destroyed by burning. The heavens and earth are reserved unto fire for destruction. Again, chapter 3 and verse 7. When the elements melt, what is this? This is stoicheia in the Greek. And there is some debate about how it's used. It's used in two ways. It means the elemental particles of something. One sense they think would be the elements as the Greeks conceived of it. Now we know the elements. We have a periodic chart with all kinds of elements that have been identified. It's quite different from the Greeks' very simple understanding as earth, air, fire, and water. But it's hard to imagine why they would say fire is going to destroy fire. So it's probably not the elements in that sense. The other sense of the word elements is the heavenly bodies. And many scholars agree in this context, the heavenly bodies, the stars, the planets, the galaxies upon galaxies, the moon, all of that, the sun will be destroyed. Some sort of spectacular fission or nuclear fusion or whatever that's going to happen, and everything will be burned up. And it's going to happen with a great noise. It will cease to be this earth. So he's not on very solid ground to try to explain away these passages. In the time remaining, let's just notice some other things about heaven. Christ ascended into heaven, Acts 1, 9-11. Flesh and blood cannot enter into the kingdom of heaven. 1 Corinthians 15:50. That includes little Scruffy or little Rover or whatever. It won't be there. Hebrews chapter 1 verses 10 and 12 says, and thou, Lord, in the beginning hast laid the foundation of the earth, and the heavens are the works of thine hand. They shall perish. This means to be lost, to pass away, to be ruined in the Greek apollumi. But thou remainest. Contrast. God remains forever. They perish. See the contrast? Not the earth remains forever along with God, as Lucado and company would say. And as a vesture shalt thou fold them up, and they shall be changed. But thou art the same, and thy years shall not fail. Change is to make something other or different. It means to change or to alter. Not this world, brothers. Those of you who endorse this idea. And this comes from the Psalm, chapter 102, verses 24 to 27. Notice also Hebrews 12, 26 to 27. Whose voice then shook the earth, but now he hath promised, saying, yet once more I shake not the earth only, but also heaven. And this word, yet once more, signifieth the removing of those things that are shaken, as of things that are made, that those things which cannot be shaken may remain. You see, the things that cannot be shaken are not the things that are now made, not this world. Let not your hearts be troubled, John 14, 1-3. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there ye may be also. Not here, there. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 18 and following. We've got to just look at that, because here Paul makes it very clear. There are things that are seen contrasted with things that are not seen. The things that are seen are temporal. I see this earth. I see the beautiful Caribbean coast. I see the Yosemite waterfall now. These are things that are seen, Brother Lucado. But Paul says in verse 18, while we look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen, for the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal. For we know that if our earthly house of this tabernacle were dissolved, this is verse 1 of chapter 5, we have a building of God, a house not made with hands, right here on this earth. No, wait a minute. I think so. I think so. No, wait. I hold with Paul. I'm sorry. I'm going to go with Paul. It's eternal in the heavens. For in this we groan earnestly and desire to be clothed upon with our house which is from heaven. So it's not this world. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, 13 and following. If you're troubled about those who are asleep, your dead loved ones who are Christians, remember this. God's going to come from heaven with his mighty angels. There's going to be a sounding of the trumpet. The Lord's coming. And when he comes back to this earth, we're going to meet the Lord in the air. And so shall we ever be with the Lord. Well, in this manner we shall ever be with the Lord. We'll come back to the earth. Right? That's what he said. That doesn't fit the context. 1 Peter chapter 1 and verse 4. To an inheritance incorruptible, undefiled, and reserved in heaven for you. No, it's on this earth, I think. No, he says it's in heaven for you. That's where it is. According to the biblical cosmology, there are three heavens. There's the first heaven, the second heaven, and the third. The first heaven is this earth's atmosphere. The second heaven is where the stars are, outer space, we call it the cosmos. The third heaven is beyond space. It's where God lives. Eliphaz said this in Job 22 and verse 12. Is not God in the height of heaven? And behold, the height of the stars, how high they are. By the way, they estimate the radius of the universe is 46.5 billion light years across. That's pretty high. Away from the earth, sir. That's pretty high. And yet God is higher than all that. He's in the third heaven. 2 Corinthians chapter 12 and verse 2. And that's where we're going. Heaven is another realm, another dimension. I don't mean to be cruel, but the Bible doesn't give hope that little Scruffy or Rover or little socks or little buttons will be there with me in heaven. Ecclesiastes 3 and verse 21 says, the spirit of the beast goeth downward, and the spirit of man goeth upward. We go up and we live in a Hadean realm up until the end of the world. Then we're reunited with our bodies. They will be transformed to live on a new heavens and a new earth, not this earth remade. There's a lot of materialism in our world. And this is very materialistic, and it reminds me of something. The Jews had a very materialistic concept of the kingdom of God in Jesus' day, and he had to disabuse them of that. Why is it those who were gospel preachers, and this man is a traitor to the cause of Christ. I know he's a kind-hearted, nice-looking, nice guy, but Lucado was a traitor to the cause. To make a buck, he stabs us in the back, and all who would stand for New Testament Christianity. He's done that and made millions. How on earth endorse this video or any of his other teachings? But I don't want to close with all of this, just refuting this false teaching. It's necessary to do that. But to remind us, back in October of this past year, it was my privilege to preach a sermon on the joys of heaven. And at that time, if you can remember some of those points, we saw how it is indescribably beautiful. It ought to be the greatest incentive of all to go there and to live forever in that other place, in another land beyond. If you're not ready to meet the Lord so that you can be there in that final place, the kingdom of heaven, I would urge you to do that this very morning to get right with God through gospel obedience. If you need to confess wrong as an erring child of God, do that. And above all, prepare yourselves, brothers and sisters, for the oncoming onslaught from liberals in our own midst who ate these silly theories they pick up all around them. Let's be ready to give an answer. Whatever you need to do, come now while together we stand and sing.